Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, the host of a Leaders Out podcast. Today, I will repeat my new great friend from the UK, Debra Blackman. We had a phenomenal conversation, 2-3 weeks ago, about her awakening and how her life completely changed upside down. What a powerful conversation it was 2-3 weeks. So I recommend you guys go check that out. And today I have her back for part two, and which I feel will be a long series of wonderful, inspiring, empowering, and even at times goosebump-inducing stories, which was the case for part one. So I recommend you guys to do that. And I'm really delighted to have her back here for us today. Debra, my dear friend, welcome back to the show.
Oh, Payman, it's great. And we had a few technical issues, so thank you so much for going through that. And yeah, it has been such a privilege to be on your show before, and it's wonderful that I'm here again. So thank you.
Very welcome, pleasure's all mine. Yes, the joys of tech sometimes, but what matters is that we've overcome that, and now we're ready to do what you do best, which is what we all do best, which is sharing your gift. So I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First of all, for people who don't know you, who haven't watched yet part one, I don't know why they haven't done that yet. Tell us a little bit about you. Who's Debra as a person? We're going to talk about your business in a moment later on, but as a person, as human being, as a woman, who's Debra in a short, concise way?
Right. So I'm all about giving back and contribution. I'm about connecting people, and I'm about giving love to humanity. And my whole thing is that I want to leave a legacy for the charities that I support when I'm not here anymore. And any help or support or contribution that I can make along the way, that is me.
Love that. Love that. We're going to expand on that in a moment later on. So now tell us, as I said, to mention, I'd like to first start off with a series of rapid fire questions to further get to know you. First of all, tell us, what makes you happy as a person?
Giving joy to others, giving support to others, knowing that I am there as a trusted source of support. I'm a great listener. So it's very much outward with me. What gives me joy is also my little dog. I've got a lovely Dachshund. She's a sausage dog. She's a big sausage dog, actually. She's the standard size. And we're a little team, which is fantastic. So I love her to bits. And yeah, the joy that I have when I give to others and contribute is just amazing.
Love that. Love that. You're speaking my language, my friend. Awesome. Now tell us, what makes you smile?
Well, lots of things make me smile these days. Didn't smile very much before, when most of my life I wasn't really a smiler, not deeply inwardly. I might put the fake one on. But what makes me smile? A sunny day. I live in the northwest of the UK, which rains all the time. So when we get a sunny day, that brings a smile to my face. Look into my little dog's eyes when I tell her I love her, that makes me smile. Going out and being with nature and seeing the most beautiful things, doesn't matter what time of year it is. It could be raining or windy, I don't mind. Just going out there and just feeling that deep sense of oneness with nature, that makes me smile. And I'm a sucker for little gifts of little cuddly puppies doing weird and wonderful things and running around, and that always makes me smile. I love all of that. So yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. Now let's take the happiness factor a couple of notches higher. What makes your heart sing? What makes your soul set on fire?
okay. So I love seeing people progress to the next level. So when I see my team, we're based in Lahore in Pakistan. For my team, I'm here in the UK, as I said, so I don't actually ever get to see them face to face. But when we've set challenges and there's a little bit of trepidation, anxiety, concern, feeling that that comfort zone's being pushed a little bit, when I see my team members break through that and come out enriched and self-confident, knowing their value, seeing their self-worth, seeing how they can contribute, I tell you what, that really just makes me fly inside. It's wonderful.
Love that, love that. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what makes you sad and angry?
Well, I made a commitment to myself not to watch or read mainstream news. Yeah.
Deborah, I do the same thing.
Yeah. So what makes me sad and angry are people who go out to shock, to worry, to tell people they're not good enough, to create negativity in mass population when they have a responsibility to spread joy, happiness, and positivity, and all they're doing is just bombarding the senses with everything that we need to avoid. It's not that I'm not well informed, but I choose not to surround myself with negativity. And so that makes me sad that fellow human beings make a living out of bringing other people down and bringing fear and upset, setting people against each other, setting nations against each other. That really makes me sad.
I am completely 1,000,000,000% on that with you. I stopped watching the news 5 years ago, and that's one of the best shit I've ever made.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, what scares you?
Not doing everything that I know I'm capable of for fear of pushing myself.
Mm.
The scare in me is that I'm not living up to my full potential because we only have a finite time in this world. It's like a nanosecond compared with even a tree. And the older one becomes, the more that I'm at the latter end of my timeline, although I'm extremely healthy and full of energy. What scares me is that I every day push myself so that I want to reach that potential as a journey, because I know I never get there to the destination, and that's not the point. The point is the journey of developing that sense of contribution and that I'm doing as much as I can. So that scares me. If I couldn't do that, yeah, that's the scary bit.
Absolutely. What would you say is your number one personal superpower?
Empathy.
Mm.
I used to be somebody that judged. I used to be somebody that had my own stamp on things, and that if people didn't bend to my will, there was something wrong with them. I would have a lot of conditions to love, and empathy brings everything together for me in that I understand that we all come from different places now, not just location wise, but that has a lot to do with it, but what's happened in our lives that I will never know. And therefore, the empathy to other people, even if they do something that I find is it hurts me in some way, that's my weakness, because I should just be thinking about the words, not how it necessarily affects my preconceived ideas or my prejudices. So empathy is something which I'm continually developing and learning about. And the old adage is the more you know, the less you know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, is the fact that that empathy is, and I have it for myself now, which I never used to. I used to be too controlling and block out the fact that I've learned so much, and the empathy that I have with myself when I've gone wrong. And failure is an important part of life because it's one of life's greatest learning skills. So I have the empathy with myself to know all those failures, whether they be directly my fault or from other ways in which you couldn't control.
Mm.
It's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. And that empathy means that I can go back and I can love myself. And the true sense of who the authentic version of me is, if now I know it, I can love myself, and therefore I can love other things and people and nature more because I have more love. So it stems from empathy for me.
Love that. Love that. Now, what is one thing that you used to value that you don't value anymore?
Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, so I used to live in a very regimented, ordered state. Everything had to be controlled. Everything had to be put away in its little compartment. Everything used to have to be put away in my mind in every compartment. I had to have very rigid sense of living because it was the only way I could navigate it, because I felt I had to control everything. And now I don't. So where I live, my conditions aren't as tidy. Where I'm working, I allow myself freedom to have a little daydream and don't beat myself up for not constantly being super focused. So what was really important to me was this element of control. And I would get anxious if I felt I couldn't control. And now I know that life isn't about controlling. It's about moving in the fluidity of what happens in one's life with as much positivity and positive affirmation, even if it's something that's not perceived as great, but actually some things come to us in life that I always think we don't know what it would have been like if we'd have had them. It could have been awful. So for instance, if I get stuck in traffic, which is not part of my schedule, the old me would have started to get really anxious behind the wheel. I would be thinking, oh, come on. And you know what? It could have been the universe's way of stopping me getting into an horrendous accident. Because you see things in the UK roads on the motorway, you go past these terrible, sometimes ending of lives, fatality of accident, and you think, my goodness, if I'd have been there 10 minutes beforehand, that could have been me.
Yes.
Yeah. So that stuck in traffic, or that thing that didn't happen in life that you're banking on, or that relationship that didn't work, it could be life's way of saying, you know what, if you'd have pursued that path, something worse could have happened to you. So I'm always now very grateful for the fluidity and the way in which I am open to new things. So when I do something called a vision board, an action board. It allows me to put down on paper or in the internet things that the images that I think resonate with me as to where I want to go. And before, it would be jam-packed of stuff. And my life was jam-packed with stuff. But now I have gaps in that, so that the creativity and the left field things that happen to us that can propel us into all sorts of wonderful new ways, they're there now, and I don't feel guilty for having the gaps. So that lack of control now is good, because I stand firm in my core values as to who I am, and I can then take the things that life throws at me. I'm like a tree in the wind. I can move, I can bend, rather than being rigid and feeling that I was at breaking point the whole time. So yeah, so that's one thing I used to hold dear that I don't anymore, and that's the orderedness of my schedule, of my life, of my home, of everything, and now it's much freer and much more relaxed.
Love that. While you're talking, a couple of questions came to mind, but I'll ask that to you in a moment. Now, vice versa, what is one thing that you didn't value before that you're valuing more and more now?
That's a really good question as well. So the value now is my personal development. Before, I was all about doing. And I didn't concentrate. So I liken this to a car. A car will get you from A to B, but you have to put in the petrol, you have to look at the engine once in a while, you have to have it serviced, you have to have your garage mechanic look at it, you have to put oil in and stuff like that. But I wasn't doing that. I was just running on empty, trying to get to somewhere. So the self-development is those bits like in the car that the garage mechanic will be looking at. I need to fine tune myself. I need to make sure that my cylinders are firing, properly, that I've got enough gas in the tank to fuel me, and it's the right type of stuff, mentally, physically, and what I eat. I've always been good with what I've eaten, but I've never been mindful as to the fact as to why I'm doing this. Why am I eating a certain way? What benefits does it have to me as a person? And also hydration. I think I pretty much live my life basically dehydrated.
Mm,
And to actually, that affects your brain, the way that you think, it affects the toxins in your body, which then influence your brain again, and your moods and your mindset. So exercise, getting the heart going, getting that oxygen pumping through, getting the toxins and flushing them out the body with hydration, and then also nurturing and feeding my brain. And what I did is last year, I trying to choose something every year to be something specific that I'm going to develop or change in myself and then develop. So last year it was the fact that through Monday to Friday, I wouldn't watch mainstream television. I would listen to educational, uplifting podcasts. I would read the things on my socials that were like all the ways in which, you know, learning from others. So it could be quotes, it could be positive affirmations. It was, again, self-care. How do I get more sleep? So I listened to guided meditations on my social feeds, especially before I was going to bed, which was really important. Educating my mind. And I've done that for the whole year, and I've carried on with it because it's been amazing. What I've learned is incredible. I wouldn't be able to speak to you now like this if I hadn't have gone through that journey. And this year, I've given up alcohol.
beautiful.
So um, it wasn't serving me. I look at things in my life and I think, well, what's giving me contribution? What's adding to my life in a positive way? And what isn't? And I didn't have an alcohol problem. I just thought, what's it doing for me? I have a drink or two. I'm not as I'm not I'm not as in the moment anymore. I've kind of dulled that edge. Is there something that is not got the toxins in that is healthier that I could do to get the better result from? I think I was thinking of it almost like red wine was healthy, which some people say it is, and that aside, but I just thought, you know, no more alcohol for me. I don't need it. It's not serving me. So I've cut that out. So that was from January 1st, and you know, New Year's resolution, and I'm fine with it because I can see the benefits of better sleep, more positive engagement in my mind, quicker reactions to things. Um, I don't have a little residual headache, which I used to get. And I just feel that my skin has improved, my energy levels have improved. And just from a little tweak, because as I say, I didn't have a drink problem, but now it's just like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And that's cool.
Indeed. Beautiful. Love that. There's a couple of things you mentioned that I want to dive a bit deeper. You mentioned that you were all about control. So what was it a specific event, moment in your life, or was it something progressive and gradual that let you let go of the control to allow more of your creativity flow?
Yes, so I'm an abuse and trauma survivor from childhood. So the stemming of where the control came from is because I had no control over my home life.
Mm,
The only thing I could control at that stage as a child, well, in the sense I had to control my words, my actions to stay under the radar, to be as small as possible so I wasn't noticed.
mm,
And when things used to happen to me, to control the emotion not to cry because otherwise it would have got worse, to control the fact of needing to speak with somebody because then if anything got found out it would have got worse. So there used to be controlling things that I would set in my head. Now,
mm,
I've never had a diagnosed eating disorder, but I know I used to control my weight through what I'd eat, my calorific consumption. So I've always tended to be on the thinner side because it manifested itself. It was never anorexia, but it was a control form of how do I do that. And then what I was finding is that I was counting numbers. I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I do something. So it's kind of like getting a bit obsessive
mm,
compulsive about stuff.
mm,
And thinking, you know, well, if I tread on a cracked line and the paving thing, something awful would happen to me today. It wasn't a good thing. So I was trying to control too much. And then this has been something that I've had all my life until I had counseling. And when the counselor asked me, what do you want to get out of these counseling sessions? And I said, I want to know who the authentic version of myself is. I want to know myself. And once that journey, and I would say to anybody, to, I know it sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? You know, to know yourself because you are who you are. But I put so many different faces on the world to try and cope with things. I'd forgotten, I couldn't remember who I was. I mean, the abuse started when I was very young. So the intrinsic me was never allowed to come out. So once that actually was able to happen, there was this paradigm shift in me where I realized actually this control was a whole mechanism of coping strategies from before, and they didn't serve me well anymore, just like the alcohol wasn't serving me well anymore. So it's taken about 18 months to really take out of the guilt factor, the shame factor of not having everything perfect, not trying to be that perfect version of something, because, you know, human beings or organisms, you know, nature, it's a messy thing. It
Mm,
has a wonderful pattern to it, and it's lovely with its colors and forms and certain patterns and seasons. But, you know, nature isn't pretty. It should rise up and it should be there. You know, people's obsessive thing about mowing grass in parks. Well, if they rewilded it, you'd get, you know, the beautiful little wildflowers, you get insects, you get all of the rodents, you'd get the invertebrates, you'd get all sorts of stuff living in that ecosystem. But because of man's, like, we've got to have it ordered and all the shrubs clipped to a certain thing, we're changing nature from the kind of the messiness, the beautiful organicness of it. So I took that and I've worked on it for myself, is to say, it's it's good enough, it's good, it's organic, and I can give more because I'm not obsessing about the something that, you know, my mobile phone isn't at right angles with the side of the countertop or something like that. You know, I would obsess about something for 5 minutes and move it each time until I felt happy with it. And I've broken free of those control elements, which is very liberating. And my mobile,
absolutely.
I'm looking at it now, and it's just like, wow, that's a different mobile phone than I've, you know, it's open, it's not in the right place as I used to have it before. So I've had to work on it though. I've had to work on it, and I have to just check myself every now and again if I feel that I'm going down that road again, because it's a neural pathway, and I've got to
Mm,
overwrite that neural pathway. It won't go away, but I can create better ones.
beautiful. Love that. Wow, powerful. You mentioned another thing that I would like to dive a bit deeper. You mentioned your core values. What are your core values?
Learning, earning, fun, and having contributing, learning and earning. So to learn, which is what I did for a year, and I'll continue to do that, is very important, because one of the things which, for our longevity, for our mental wellness, for our physical wellness as well, is if we learn new things all the time, we're always developing. That isn't an age thing. That should always be constant learning, whether it be about ourselves, our surroundings, particular subject matter, learning about people, how we are, learning about ourselves. There should always be some form, I believe, in my life of constant learning, new things all the time. And then earning, well, one of the things which earning does is it helps me to give more and to contribute more. It
Mhm.
helps me with my choices. I have to have a certain level of income where the anxiety of lack is gone, and I know that I can create from what I have, and that fluctuates, but I'm always thinking about ways in which I can create that, so that obviously my legacy would become greater when I die. And then having fun, because sometimes it can all get a bit serious, and or I can lose sight of the fun element. So what am I doing it for? It should be fun, it should be exciting, it should be something I should smile about, laugh about, especially myself. I like to have fun with myself, in the sense that I see that I do something and it's just ridiculous, and so I can laugh at myself now, whereas before that was a no-go area. Nobody should laugh at me, and I wouldn't laugh at myself. But now I know who I am. I know I'm fallible. I know I'm here to make mistakes. but at least I try. And if it goes wrong and that's hey, that's life. It's cool. At least I gave it a go. And look at me, hey, stupid on me again. But it's not negative self-talk. It's like loving myself in the sense that it's okay not to be always doing things right. Having fun, listening to nice, warm comedy that makes people smile, that is looking at life not too seriously. I love these little memes about these little dogs that run off and jump off things or fall off beds or whatever and I just laugh and I think it's great. And so that's important. And then contributing, which I said, that's a very, very key element to me, is what can I give? What can I help people, to learn, the positive element that I have in my carbon footprint, as it were, for me. It's all about contribution.
Love that. Powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. Now, you like traveling, don't you?
I like traveling. I haven't traveled so much recently, but yeah, I like traveling.
All right. We can do an entire episode just on traveling, but we'll save that for another time. I'd like to take you down a different type of traveling, down memory line. When we're kids growing up, people around us, family, relatives, teachers, neighbors, friends, always ask us, "Hey, Deborah, what do you want to become when you grow up?" What was your answer to that question as a little girl?
Interestingly enough, I wanted to be a horse riding instructor.
Wow.
Because I grew up in a rural area and I was very lucky that I had ponies and horses and I enjoyed doing that and I did it competitively for a while.
Mm,
And you know what? The interesting thing is, I now help people learn, develop, not completely within my role, but my team, helping clients learn and develop, etc. So actually that whole element of being a teacher,
mm.
helping somebody improve their lives and what they want, that's actually not too far away from what my childhood aspiration was.
Indeed, indeed. Growing up, what was your relationship with school? Did you love school or did you hate school?
Um, School actually became for me a place which was a haven because it was away from my caregivers,
Mm,
um, and my abusers. So it became a haven. I was a loner because I hadn't learned the skills to develop relationships, far from it. So I always felt myself at school as being an observer, looking out and looking from the outside in. I never felt like I was a part of anything. But one of the things I was very privileged, because my family were, I suppose, in some people's eyes, wealthy people. And that's a whole other thing, how people can fall through the cracks if you come from a wealthy family. But the schools that I went to were always in these beautiful, old fashioned English buildings. And what I took away from my schooling is this wonderful sense of aesthetics, this whole thing about the beautiful surroundings that I was in. And I would always be eternally grateful for the fact that there was a lot of ugliness in
mm.
my life and that I was able to have this almost like Harry Potter-esque kind of fantasy in the Gothic type of school. And then I went to the school, the house was actually a ducal palace, where we got educated with beautiful grounds. And so if anything were to be giving me back to little Deborah, something to hold on to and cherish, it was the beauty of the surroundings of school, which I'll always take with me.
Beautiful. What was your favorite subject in school?
I had two favorite subjects actually. One was art
Mm,
and the other one was English. And I loved art because it gave me the opportunity to express myself in a way that was intrinsically me. We got taught how to do things the correct way, but when I put that brush onto the canvas or the pencil onto the paper, whatever was coming from my hand was me. And I loved art for that. And it gave me a lot of joy. And also it was kind of a solitary activity. I wasn't, for probably reasons which people can understand, I wasn't much into teams because I didn't have that kind of thing in my family, because I was always on my own, and wanted to be on my own. So art and English, writing, I like words. I like the pictures I could draw with words when I wrote words out, and forming stories. And those stories that take you through somebody else's life, and that you're looking inwards and you're seeing these characters develop in front of you. Yeah, those were the two subjects that I really, really enjoyed the most.
Beautiful. Was there any subject you did not like at all?
Yeah, maths. I
Why?
know, God. Why? Okay, so this is an insight into why I don't like maths. My father used to start the abuse with giving me a maths test.
Oh, wow.
And then when I went wrong, my punishment then ensued. So I would, even now, I have to kind of suppress an anxiety, because, of course, your body holds this trauma and expresses itself in these feelings of anxiety. I have to now lean into that and understand, and take my little Debra's hand and go, it's okay. It's okay. Maths is okay. But what it did is it kind of blanked my mind out for maths. And weirdly enough, I think actually something I should be taking up again is understanding the beauty of the pattern of numbers, the creativity in those patterns in numbers, and how it's not frightening for the reasons which I know maths was frightening, which isn't going to be the same for most people. But yeah, maths was a pretty scary subject for me.
Yeah. You mentioned your father would give you a punishment. What was your punishment in those times?
Well, that was when the abuse started.
I see.
Yeah, yeah. So I was manipulated and psychologically abused by my mother, who was a narcissist, and my father was a bully and sexually
Mm.
abused me as well.
Your father.
So, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So, and I'm very open with it now, whereas before I would never ever say anything easily because it's my journey. But
Sure.
I take the view now: why protect? Why protect perpetrators when, in fact, actually, without calling them out, both of my parents suffered from mental illness. I'm convinced of that. They weren't, they've obviously had trauma and abuse in their own lives. So ultimately, I forgive them from the point of view of their mental illness. I think we all have choices. And so the fact that they were oblivious to the choices that they were making and how it manifested itself, I don't forgive them for their lack of good choices, but I do forgive them from the mental illness not allowing them to break that cycle. And that's been enormously helpful for me, because the only person that really suffers, in my mind, if you
Mm.
hold on to um, loathing and hatred
And
and
grudges.
resentment, is ourselves. I mean, for me anyway. So once
Absolutely.
I was able to forgive, that opened up a completely new part of my heart and my soul, which is wonderful, is absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant. And those lessons that I learned at that time, albeit that they were learned in very negative situations, have actually, I can use them in for powers of good now. So and this is this whole thing you'd ask me about, what's my superpower, is the
Mm.
empathy, is actually understanding why people are monsters and empathizing with that. And you notice I don't use the word sympathize, but it's
Mm.
empathizing because it's much more objective. I
Sure.
understand. So from that point of view, yeah, it's a very can't quite think of your original question, but for me, the abuse has helped me to see others' pain in more objective terms. And also, they say I attracted people who had addictions and alcohol issues, etc., into my life, which is relatively understandable given what I went through. And I went to Al-Anon, which is the support group for people who've got alcoholics in their lives, for a good couple of years, if not 3. And that whole thing about learning how to look at things objectively and not to internalize it and understand that it's not my fault. It just happened to me. I say just happened to me, but it did just happen to me. it's happened to other people, and unfortunately it will continue to be happening to other people. But does it define me? And it did for so long, and now it doesn't. And that's really freeing and liberating, because I can
Absolutely.
move beyond it and use what has happened as a power for good, and a power that I can use to contribute with and understand. And alcoholics, without Al-Anon, they tell you the best people to support recovering alcoholics are other recovering alcoholics, because there's a level of understanding, having gone through things, that you've got that empathy, you've got that compassion, you've got that understanding, albeit from your own perspective, but you've still got a level of understanding of what has happened and how it affects people and the other person. So I would never say that I would want it to happen, but it did. Point blank, that was it. And the way in which my body, that itself wasn't the trauma. The trauma is how then oneself takes that trauma on board and how you internalize it. And now I'm free of that trauma. I know how I get triggered, so I can put measures in place to understand those triggers and lean into them and understand them for what they are. And so other people who are experiencing similar or have experienced similar, I now kind of understand how people show up for work, how people show up for relationships, how people show up for themselves, who are enduring or have gone through that kind of abuse and are suffering from similar kind of trauma as a result. So yeah, so I wouldn't swap it, because it could have been worse. You know, it's like that whole car accident thing. The
Absolutely.
life I've had, if I hadn't have been born, it could have been even worse. So, you know, I'm thankful for that it wasn't. And the other thing is I'm always thankful for is that I was able to go out into nature, because we lived in the countryside and I had my ponies and my horses, which were my life saving. People think, you know, gosh, privileged little child. Well, actually, if I didn't have those, I don't know what I would have done. So if I'd been in the middle of a housing estate, you know, in the middle of London with high rises and no open spaces, and you were locked in that flat pretty much, I have no idea what would have happened. But the fact that I could go out for most of the day and be on my own with the pony or the horse and be able to breathe and be in my own environment was, for me, I think it was a lifesaver.
Absolutely. You know, you said some very, very powerful things. One, I mean, most of them. The first thing that comes to mind is when you said that you look at things that you went through for what you learned through them and from them, because nothing happens to you, but everything happens for you. For me, what changed my life was understanding the tremendous value of, tremendous power of questions and asking the right question. Before something bad happened to me, I used to ask these empowering questions such as, what did I do to deserve this? Why? Why is life so unfair? Where is God? Where? And whine like a little bee. And when you whine like a little bee, nothing good comes out of it. Instead, I learned to ask a more empowering questions. Two questions, actually. One, what is this trying to teach me? And two, what's a lesson for me to learn to this? And that applies to everything: challenges, heartbreaks, betrayals, even tragedy. Always ask, I've been asking myself, what is this trying to teach to me? And what is the lesson for me to learn to this? And when I look at things from this perspective, then I understand that even the most painful, the most tragical event I went through, there was a beautiful gift in that. There was a beautiful lesson, power for me to learn to that. So I'm really glad that you also now share you went through, on one hand, on paper, you had a very perfect upbringing and an affluent family, but then it was only on paper. Then underneath, there was a lot of murky waters, abuse from both of your parents and of all sorts. And what was your saving grace, you said, were your two ponies. And if I look again at those as from a spiritual perspective, your ponies were absolutely, I strongly feel that they were your part of your angel guardians to be here to help you go to those very difficult moment. Maybe you, from what I understand, you were the only child in the family that made it even more challenging, and you had those two animals, those two ponies, basically your siblings in a way, your best friends, your everything, your life, your haven of peace, you know,
Oh
your
yeah.
safe space, so to speak, you know. So when you look at things from that perspective, and now with the eyes of wisdom that you look back at those moments, what were those? And you mentioned that in a moment. I want to dive deeper into that. What were those very difficult, challenging moments and times of your life teaching you? What was a lesson for me to learn to this? Even though, for example, the pain that your parents inflicted upon you, from a high, looking at that from a higher and spiritual perspective, what were they trying to teach you through those painful way they were treating you?
Well, the thing is now, I could have done it a lot maybe sooner, but obviously it was my journey is my journey.
Mm,
Is how I can help others and how I can contribute to the understanding of, okay, this is why today the podcasts that I do um, is all about having something go out there that might resonate with somebody. And if it does, to know that there is hope, that there is a different way, that you're not just good enough, you are amazing, you're wonderful, you are everything that you could possibly imagine. Nothing happens without hard work. Um, but it's that willingness to shed a skin. So, for instance, a snake, its skin doesn't grow with it. There's a certain point with trauma and abuse where you kind of like, you're constricted in the skin that you're in, or that, you know, you're bound by your thought pattern. And unfortunately, over time, which was happening to me, it was getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So, what was becoming acceptable in my life were having greater and greater boundaries on them. You know, somebody might have just had an offhand comment, and I'd be like, I don't like that person. You know, so it was getting more and more and more inward looking in the and selfish and self-centered, and the world is horrible. And I actually, I remember saying to a friend of mine, I'm cursed. I have been born into an intergenerational curse. And they're like, what? And I say, yeah, because everything that could go wrong happens to me. And this is where I got in my state of mind, that I was this victim with a capital V, the biggest V for victim you've ever seen. Everything bad was going to happen to me because I'd been cursed. And now I look at it, it's perfectly understandable that you think like that, because you think, well, yeah, some really horrible things have happened and continue to do so. But I was completely incapable of looking at the good and the positive and the enlightening and that whole thing of contribution. No, I was walking around with this great big sign saying, I hate the world and I hate myself. And so once I'd realized that to continue like that was going to be one desperately sad. But I think the last episode, I'm not sure if I talked about this, but there was a catalyst. I mean, the cracks were getting so wide that I couldn't just paper over them anymore. And by the cracks, I mean what I was trying to cover up, what I was ashamed of in my life, this whole thing about abuse and how it was affecting me and my relationships in every area of my world, to organizing my phone on my desk, to trying to control all my friends, to try and control my relationships with romantic relationships. You know, they step one foot out of line and I'd be like, oh my God, you hate me, blah, 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 blah. And then I'd be on the other hand, why don't people love me? It's just like, I wasn't lovable. I really wasn't a lovable person at all. And how I managed to keep friends, of which, actually saying that, a number of friends now have gone out of my life because we journeyed together in the states that we were in, and now we're not journeying together because of my different state, which is interesting. But relationships, abusive relationships, men hitting me, um, uh, people, men manipulating me, trying to take my money. Of course, I attracted those people because I was like that. So when this epiphany happened, what the catalyst was, you know, the guy that said he wanted a networking meeting later in the evening, and I said yes, because I have no boundaries at that point. I kind of knew in my back of my mind this wasn't right, but I still did it anyway. And then this whole issue that happened after that, and I went home in tears, and I went to bed crying, and I woke up crying, sobbing. And I thought, I can't continue like this. This isn't, I'm living in a nightmare, in a self-imposed hell. So that's when I looked for counseling, and that's when my life changed. And I've always had a spiritualness about me, but it wouldn't take much for me to be thrown off course. And once that monster was came out of me, once it went, that big, heavy, black, stinking, putrid mess that was within me, that energy, once it went, then I could see actually what a wonderful, great, beautiful, fantastic, incredible woman I was, or person. Even despite my gender, I'm kind of like, I often feel like I'm genderless now, because it's that love to humanity that I want to bring. Then I started to fill with the light, the love, the contribution, the sense of wonderment, the joy, the happiness. But also, we're not talking about, fairy tale here. It's understanding that life is going to throw you brickbats. It's
Sure.
also going to throw you bouquets. They might not be in equal measure, and the brickbat might jolly well hurt. But ultimately, as you say, they are lessons that shape, define you, that galvanize you, but still make you still keep flexible. You still understand things for what they are, and that you shield yourself without feeling that you've taken yourself away, but you protect yourself in a good way by doing simple things like not looking at mainstream media and news that is just negative, 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 not surrounding yourself with people who are negative and taking from you and always unhappy, in the sense that why me, poor me, blah, blah, blah. And surrounding oneself, because people come into your life then when you're of that level which your energetic field is. Beautiful people like you, Payman, great people like John Donnelly and Mark Jarrett and other people in life that come to, and you think, wow, these people exist. These people are lovely. And then having that sense of, a friend of mine, whom I've just actually caught up with, isn't it funny? We were friends at school, and I'm just suddenly coming in, and they're a lovely person, and they live in a different part of the country. And they said, oh, come visit. And I went, you know what? I said, I can't. I'm a little bit tired for time. I want to concentrate on this. And they went, oh, go on, come on. I said, no. I said, but I can do X, Y, and Z. Now, the old me would have gone, oh, all right then, and resented the fact that I would have gone, because I wouldn't have felt that I would have felt I would have been taken advantage of. But actually, I've said no, but I'm going to go when it is right, and everybody's happy. So I've set boundaries. Good, clear, positive, loving, caring, self-generating, whatever the word is, boundaries. Because boundaries create balance. Boundaries create balance, and that those boundaries of knowing my self-worth, those boundaries knowing I need so much sleep, I need to take care of myself, I'm feeling tired, therefore I need some space. I'm an introvert, so I need some time on my own to clarify my thoughts and regenerate and re-energize. And that's fine. Having good, healthy, strong, principled, loving boundaries is great. But I just didn't possess them before, and I let every person in my world dictate what I did, how I did it. No wonder the resentment came up. But now I can say no with love, with care, with gratitude. I can say no. And
Beautiful.
I was saying yes to the wrong things, and I wasn't letting the right things come into my life.
Beautiful. I can really relate with that because for long as I can remember, I was always, the typical people pleaser. Plus, I grew up in an environment and a culture that was all about doing for others, always putting my needs, my wants in the background. And that's been really, in a way, I felt I was cursed in that way. And I'm only starting now, well, not now, but just in the last year or two to really start to develop my own boundaries. Speaking of boundaries, what was the single most important boundary, the mother of all boundaries that you set up was the most important thing, and that laid the foundation for the rest of the boundaries to come and make your life more, to put yourself first and to really make it more meaningful. So what was the number one, the most important boundary that you yourself set up first?
The most important boundary for me, as I touched upon it, was the ability with love and care and compassion to say no.
Mm. No
To
to
say no.
people, no to
No to
requests.
circumstances, no to the fact that, you see, as I touched upon, my
Mm,
whole idea about life was control. So
mm,
I would push myself when I was sick to exercise. I would push myself to just exist on maybe anxious driven nights sleep, it wasn't really sleep,
no.
um, to try and be everything for everybody, people please, um, say yes to things that I didn't want to do and then resent it. So in every regard, for myself, to tell myself, no, Deborah, you don't need to do that anymore. Whatever that might be, you don't need to do it. Not feeling guilty about saying no.
Mm,
If somebody like my friend asks, oh, come, 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 come. No, I love you. I think you're a great person. We have fun together, but that isn't the right time for me to come. But also then to set an alternative. But you know what? If you're free and X, I can do that. Oh yeah, I'm free. Well, let's do that then. Well, how difficult was that? It was
exactly.
easy because that's what healthy boundaries, healthy friendships, that's what healthy mindset people do with each other. But I hadn't come from that environment, so I didn't know it. And yeah, the healthy boundary of saying no has been my greatest freedom
Mm,
into understanding who I, and not to feel guilty, not to feel ashamed, not to overthink, well, what will that person think of me if I say that? What will I be perceived as being out to the whole wider? No, forget that, because you know what? People aren't that interested anyway. And I would go out and I would blow this out of proportion without any real empirical evidence to back it up. And if I say no, oh, they're going to think this, they're going to think that, or, well, somebody else is doing that, so I should do that.
absolutely. Wow. Listen, that's beautiful. I love that. Just reinforces for me as well, because one of the reasons I'm doing my podcast, I love doing, is learning from other people, because life is a journey. We come here. I want to learn with people who are maybe who've been here longer than me, maybe one or two steps ahead of me, or even just to confirm what I'm learning in the process. Because life is a school. We come here to learn, grow, become wiser and better. But that's from my understanding, that's only 5% of why we are here. The 95% is taking those lessons, those wisdom, those gifts, and sharing them with others so we can all collectively learn, grow, and rise together so we can all create a better world together. And for that, I salute you. You're true leader with a heart. You've been doing that wonderfully. And I can't wait to dive deeper into all your powerful work you're doing, your impact. We're going to do that for part 3. Let's call it a day for this part. I salute you. And once again, if someone wants to connect with you, Deborah, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, thank you very much, Payman.
Welcome.
So I have an email address and it's DB, that's Deborah Blackman, but my initials DB, at Vicentially, that's VIE, double S for Sierra, ENTIA, and my email address, sorry, my LinkedIn account, just one second, just going to bring that up. Just one moment, is, oh, she says, it's Debra Blackman. Anyway, I've just lost my my LinkedIn details. But yeah, please do. And then if you want to give me a call, the office number is the UK is +44. And then if you're in the UK, you dial the 0. If you're not, then you don't. And then it's 1772 808 584.
Beautiful, Deborah. Listen, absolutely powerful conversation. Love our conversation with you. It's so deep. Thank you for not only sharing your story, but opening up your heart. And we're only getting started. So much more we can do. Love your passion, love your journey. And I'm very much looking forward to part 3. So in the meantime, it's what? It's like 10 o'clock in the morning for you right now in the UK?
Oh, it's 12, just
Oh,
gone
12,
12
sorry, it's noon.
midday.
All right. Enjoy your lunch. Have a phenomenal, as we say back home in Canada, have a fantabulous day. Have a fantabulous week, sorry. And then talk to you very, very soon next week. Take care, my friend.
Thank you, Payman. It's been a pleasure, as
You're
always.
welcome.
Thank you.
Pleasure's all mine.
Thank you.
Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.